You know, I keep hearing about this like cash envelope system everywhere I turn. And to be honest, the idea of going back to old school cash, like in this digital world we live in, it's kind of got me curious.
It really is strange how something that seems so, like, outdated, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a time of instant payments and, like, Apple Pay and all that, can actually work so well.
Yeah, no kidding. Like there's just something about physically holding cash that feels so different.
Uh-huh.
So, well, let's like dive into this a little.
Yeah.
What exactly is this cash envelope system and why is it making a comeback?
Okay, so basically the cash envelope system is this way budgeting,
Yeah.
where you split up all your monthly expenses into categories, like your groceries and entertainment, going out to eat, all the usual stuff.
Okay. So far, so good. Sounds simple enough.
Yeah, totally. Then you decide how much you want to spend on each of those categories every month.
Right.
And then you take out that amount in cash and you put it in envelopes and label them.
So instead of just like tracking numbers in a spreadsheet or an app, I'm physically separating the money based on what I'm going to spend it on.
Right. And this is where it gets interesting. There's been research that shows that people actually tend to spend less
Hmm.
and make more thoughtful choices when they're using cash instead of cards or digital payments.
Is that because we're just so used to tapping our phones or swiping cards that we're kind of disconnected from like the actual value of money?
I think there's definitely a psychological aspect to it. Researchers call it the pain of paying. Basically, it means we feel a bigger sense of loss when we actually see the cash leaving our hands. It makes us stop and think before we actually buy something.
So basically, with the cash envelope system, I can literally see my like eating out money shrinking with each restaurant meal instead of just seeing the balance
Right.
on my credit card statement go down a month later.
Exactly. You're seeing it right there.
Yeah.
That's the power of this system. It makes you actually connect with your spending. So it's harder to overspend or just buy stuff on a whim.
You know, this reminds me of my grandparents. They always use cash for everything, and they were super frugal. Maybe they
Yeah.
were onto something back then.
There's a lot of wisdom in those old ways. Back then, people had a more hands-on relationship with their money. And in a way, this cash envelope system is bringing us back to that basic idea of spending carefully.
I bet some people are probably thinking, hold on, isn't carrying around all that cash kind of risky?
That's a good point, and you definitely got to be smart about it. You don't need to have, like, tons of cash on you.
Mm.
The point is to only take what you need for what you've got planned, and the rest stays home where it's safe.
Gotcha. So if I'm going out shopping for the weekend, I'd grab my shopping envelope with the cash I set aside, but my groceries or gas money would just stay put until I need it.
Exactly. You're still being strategic about your money and thinking it through.
Okay, this is starting to make sense. But
Ah,
what about bills that change every month? Like utilities? Does the cash envelope system work for those too?
that's a great question. Cash envelopes work best for spending categories that are flexible, where you can control how much you spend, like groceries or entertainment. For bills that are more fixed or change each time, like utilities or rent, you probably want to use separate bank accounts or a budgeting app to keep track of those.
So it's not about using cash for absolutely every expense, right? It's
Mhm.
more about using it strategically
Hmm.
for the things where we tend to overspend or make impulsive decisions.
You got it. It's all about using the best tool for the job and knowing how our minds work when it comes to spending money.
This is really cool stuff. It's kind of crazy how much we depend on digital payments now.
Yeah.
That we've kind of lost touch with how spending actually makes us feel, bringing cash back in. It's like it wakes us up to that feeling again.
Yeah, it's like a reset button for our money habits.
Oh,
And speaking of habits, one of the biggest things people struggle with when they're budgeting is keeping it up. It's easy to start out strong, but then life happens or you see a sale you can't resist and you fall off track.
oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
So how does this cash envelope thing help with that?
Well, just by using it, it makes you face your spending habits head on. When you go for that shopping envelope and there's only like $50 left for the whole month, it's a real wake-up call.
It's like having someone right there, making sure you stay on track. But okay, let's say I'm really going to try this. Where do I even start?
First thing, you gotta know how you're spending your money right now. Track every dollar for a month or two, even the little things.
Right, that's always step one, knowing where your money's going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you have that info, you can start putting your expenses into categories. Think about the things you spend money on regularly. Groceries, getting around, eating out, entertainment, personal stuff, whatever fits your life.
And then comes the exciting part, figuring out how much I actually want to spend in each category.
That's where you set the limits. Be real with yourself. And think about your money goals. Like if you're trying to save for a house, You might need to ease up on the entertainment or eating out budget.
It's about making choices on purpose and spending in a way that matches what's important to you.
You got it. The cash envelope system is about you being in control of your money, not the other way around.
Okay, I've tracked my spending, put things into categories, and set my budget amounts. What now? Do I just hit the ATM and take out a whole month's worth of cash?
Pretty much. But don't forget, be safe. You don't want to be walking around with a ton of cash.
Right. That's not a good idea.
Here's a good tip. Start with just a week's worth of cash for each category. That way you can try it out without carrying too much around.
That's smart. It's less overwhelming, and you can adjust as you go.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about those times when you might want to spend more than you planned or take from another envelope. What can you do to stay on track?
Good question. I know I can get tempted by a sale or a friend who wants to grab dinner last minute.
The impulse buys.
Mm.
One thing that helps is to picture your goals. Like if you're saving for a vacation, imagine yourself on that beach or exploring that city.
That's a good way to remember why I'm doing this in the first place.
Another tip is to give yourself time to think. If you're about to buy something you don't really need, wait a day before you do it.
That's probably a good way to avoid feeling bad about buying stuff later.
Definitely.
Okay.
And remember, the cash envelope system isn't about not enjoying yourself. It's about making choices you're aware of.
It's about letting yourself spend what you can afford, but doing it with a plan and being aware what happens if I actually do need more money in a certain category.
That happens. And the system's flexible. You can borrow from another envelope. But the important thing is you have to move that money on purpose and change your budget to reflect that.
So if I didn't budget enough for groceries one week, I could take some from my entertainment envelope, but I'd need to remember that change and maybe cut back on entertainment later that month.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about keeping things balanced and making sure you're still in control.
I'm starting to get how this simple system can actually really change how we think about and use money. It's not just about managing money. It's about managing our impulses and making choices that help us reach our goals. It's amazing how something like cash envelopes can feel so, like, groundbreaking, in this day and age. It's like we're rediscovering this lost art of spending with intention.
Yeah, I think people really want things to be simple
Mm.
and to feel in control. When it comes to money, we get hit with so much information and so many options these days. It's easy to get overwhelmed and forget the basics.
It's almost like we don't even make our own money decisions anymore. It's all algorithms and credit card companies.
Kinda, yeah. And while technology can be super helpful, there's something to be said for taking back control over our own money.
Totally. Okay, before we finish up, I want to touch on something I think a lot of people are probably wondering. What if I do most of my shopping online? How does this cash envelope thing work in a digital world?
That's a really good question. There are a couple ways you can make it work for online spending. One option is to make a separate envelope just for online shopping and take out a certain amount of cash each month just for that.
So instead of just clicking add to cart without thinking I'd have to actually take out that cash beforehand, almost like I'm making a purchase for myself.
Exactly. It makes you think more about your online shopping, so you're less likely to buy stuff you don't need. Another option is to use prepaid debit cards for buying stuff online.
So I could put like $100 from my online shopping envelope onto a prepaid card and just use that card for those purchases.
Right, it creates a limit, just like the cash envelope. So you're only spending up to a certain amount.
Okay. I'm starting to get it. It's not about giving up technology completely. It's more about using it in a smarter way and on purpose, even when I'm shopping online. But let's be real. Even if I'm really trying, there might be times when I'm tempted to cheat the system. Any advice for staying on track when my willpower starts to fade?
We all have those moments.
Yeah.
Right, those temptations are tough. One thing that can help is to have someone to keep you accountable. Someone you can talk to about your progress. Or even someone who wants to try this with you.
Like a money buddy.
Exactly. Talking about your goals and struggles with someone else can really make a difference in helping you stay motivated. Another tip is to look at your budget regularly and celebrate the wins.
So instead of focusing on what I'm not spending, I should focus on how much I'm saving or how much closer I'm getting to my goals.
Yeah. When you see those wins, even the small ones, it helps you build those good habits and makes the whole thing feel less restrictive.
I like that. It's not about depriving myself. It's about feeling empowered. Okay, as we're wrapping up this deep dive, is there one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say it's this. The cash envelope system is a tool. And just like any tool, It works best when you use it, with intention and purpose. Don't be afraid to play around with it, make it work for you, and figure out what's best for your situation. The whole point is to build a better and more mindful relationship with your money, and this system can really help you do that.
That's a great way to put it. I'm already feeling inspired to try this out and
Yeah.
see how it changes my own spending habits. And for everyone listening, if you're ready to take charge of your finances and experience how simple and empowering this cash envelope system can be, we encourage you to take that first step. Start small, keep at it, and celebrate your wins along the way. Until next time, happy budgeting.